Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. Today we're going to continue working on the crazy quilted Christmas tree, and I'm so excited to get going on this. I have to take a minute to tell you one of the things that happened this week. This channel reached 5,000 subscribers, which is incredible. I am so amazed by that. When I started this channel 5 years ago, I thought I might get 2,000, 2,500 people to subscribe, and we've doubled that number, and it's absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that is here with me. You make my heart glad. I love that so many people are interested in crazy quilting and stitching and spreading the joy throughout the world. Thank you so much, because it wouldn't happen without you. You being here encourages me to keep making videos. So keep those comments coming. I read every single one, and I will definitely try and answer. To celebrate 5,000 subscribers, I would like to start the new year off with a Q&A. So if you have questions for me, would you go to my Instagram account, look up Ivory Blush Roses on Instagram, and it's all one word. I'll put the link here and in the description below. There is a post there about a Q&A, and I'd like you to leave me your questions that you would like to have answered, and I'll do that in one of the first videos in January. Thank you so much. Again, I couldn't do this without you. You motivate me, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that has tuned in and hit that subscribe button. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and so I have not done too much stitching, but I can't wait to do some more seams on this. We're going to try and finish before the end of December. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can make it, but we're going to try. I'm going to be doing a lot of stitching that I may not show all of on camera, because I'd really like to get a lot of seams done today. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at the stitch book. I have one seam that I'm pretty sure I want to do on this upper seam. It's this seam right here, and I think it will look really good coming down this seam. Now this one has a feather stitch base, and then it's just straight stitches with beads sitting on the top of those. And so that's going to be really easy to do. Now we used kind of a lime green thread here to, well, I don't know if it's lime green, but it was a green that went really well with this piece. But on this one, I need something that's going to contrast with it, because that wouldn't show up on that one. So I'm actually thinking about using this on here, because I think it would show up on both of those green fabrics pretty well. I think I'm just going to pull out a piece of that, and we're going to get going. I'm going to start outside in my seam area, just because I want to make sure that it looks like it carries all the way up. And I'm just going to stitch a standard feather stitch coming down that seam. So basically I'm making a little V on either side of that seam. You can see this one ends, and I want to carry that through just in case we need it. We may not. So this is subtle so far. It's not super easy to see. So now the question is, for those little starry elements that are done with straight stitches, do I want to do those in the same green, or maybe even, say, a gold? The more I think about this, the more I think I don't really want to use gold on this. Let's think about what beads I would like to use on this, though, because I think that will help me. And we used pearly ones on this. I thought I had some nice opaque ones. Wonder what I did with those. I think I'm going to stick with green, but do I want to change it to a different color, or do I want to stick with the same tones? I think with this variegated thread, I'm going to stick with the same one. I'm going to start up at the top and work my way down, and I'm going to try and do darker thread on this side and lighter thread on that side. We may be jumping back and forth as we go here. And if we can take a look at that seam again, there's 5 little straight stitches coming off of each leg of that. So that's pretty straightforward. See if we can keep from getting our seam allowance out here. So I'm going to be coming up roughly in the center. There's going to be one that comes up almost straight from that. Wow, you just almost don't see those. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Let's just keep going. We're never going to get this done if I question every single seam that I'm doing. So these are going to be a little bit random, and that's just fine. It doesn't all have to be perfect and symmetrical, as we've been talking about. So I'm going to stitch through these little straight stitches, just doing 5 off of each one and trying to randomly vary the color so you can show up better on depending on which fabric it is. And I'll come back to you once it is complete. And then we will put beads on. I have the embroidery done on that seam, and I'm going to come in and use beads. Now I have these white opaque seed beads, and I think that's what I want to use on that seam. I need my beading needle and a length of white. We'll thread that up and stitch some beads on. I guess I better get a bead mat out because I have a sense I'm going to have beads everywhere. So there's my mat. I'm not going to put a lot out at a time. I just want to pinch out so that I can have them ready. And for this, I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. So one of the things when I'm stitching on beads is I want to think about what orientation do I want that bead to have. If I put the bead on so it goes this way, where the stitches come side to side, then it goes with the flow. But sometimes I like to put it on so it sort of ends, and I think this one I want it to end on that. And that will be a different direction than we did on this seam over here. So we'll stitch one of these together, and then I'll come back and show you when I've got it all done. And I'm trying to come up right at the end of these, but if I don't, it's not going to be a huge deal. It'll still work. So when I'm trying to be precise, I do find that it helps to do more of a stab stitching, where you're going down and up in separate motions rather than sort of scooping the fabric up with your needle. Now I'm noticing these beads are definitely varying a lot in size and shape. Once the whole thing is done, you're going to find that that doesn't really matter quite so much. But since they are, I'm just going to do it so it's hopefully random and not super consistent with which one is which. I am going to tell you I'm having a hard time seeing some of this straight stitching on this green fabric because sometimes that thread really blends in. Now this one runs into this other seam, and so we're totally missing one leg, and that's fine because there's going to be a seam running along there. Since I'm right here at the outside, I'm just going to jump up and do this out to in, and then we'll do this one and kind of work our way back and forth. And I think that'll be less wastage of thread. Coming this way, I feel like I can scoop it and be accurate. I feel like I definitely stitch faster when I'm scooping. Now that we're getting a few of these done, we're going to see the pattern coming through. Let me get these beads stitched on, and then I will be back and we'll take a look at where we're at. So I finished that seam. I did end up putting in a few pretty close to the seam here. I know I'm going to be using a zipper foot on this one just because of the nature of it. So I think I'm going to be okay. But I've got that seam done. Now I'm thinking I might need some beads here, but I want to see what I do here before I follow that pattern on down. I think that's the next one we should do. I think I'm just going to work my top down. I'd like a simple seam for this one because it's going to compete with both of these incoming seams. Let's take a look and see what we can find. I'm thinking something like a nice chevron stitch might work well, but it needs to be a fairly narrow seam. And I've just done a feather stitch and that herringbone cretin stitch. Let's find something a little tighter. We could use a chain stitch too. Again, I'm looking for things that have that sort of sparkly, starry look to them. So if I don't see something, I'm just going to quickly move ahead. I don't want something that looks too much like the feather stitch or the herringbone right now. So I'm going to look here for a minute and then I'll show you what I've chosen. I really think the deciding sometimes takes more time than everything else. That's the one that I'm thinking of doing. So it's got sort of a little trefoil with a bead and then that arched line and some lazy daisy leaves. I don't have a lot of success stitching this type of seam without marking it. So this one I am going to mark. So I'm going to get out the white marker, and this is a white Mark Be Gone pen, and it is water soluble. It's not my favorite pen, but I also need a template. So let me see if I can find my set of favorite templates. So I collect a lot of templates, but I don't use a lot of templates. So this is my favorite set right here. And if it's not in there, we're probably not going to use it. I have all these different ones. Everybody stitches with a little different sensibility, your own personal preferences for what you do. It all plays a role in this. I also have this template, which is really meant for sashiko, and sometimes it works well. If we look at this curve, that might actually be a really nice curve on there. I like that one. That one's too close together. That's too steep. I could do that one and alternate, but I don't think it's quite deep enough. I actually like this one best. So like I said, it's a sashiko template. It's just simple, flimsy, but it's used for marking the sashiko pattern. When I look for templates, I look at drafting supplies, I look at journaling supplies, because it's amazing how often they have lovely little templates for things you can trace and draw. Scrapbooking, sashiko, look in the other quilting stuff, embroidery stuff, because a lot of times you'll find interesting things. This one, in my experience on the wool, it works, but it's not great. Now I'm going to go along the diagonal line here just to get more length out of it. And I want to think about where my seams are. And this, it sort of curves, so we're going to be watching that. I think that will work here. I don't know if this is going to work or not, folks. This pen is a little thicker, and so it doesn't go through quite. That one, see, and I already drew it on the wrong side as well. Let me look back at this. Yeah, I wanted to go up. Nothing marks beautifully on wool that I have found. So if you've found something, let me know. I'm hoping this just gives us enough to go on. So I'm going to stitch that as fast as I can go here. We're doing that in this off-white. I'm just going to use a simple stem or outline stitch on this. I tend to work best on that stitch from left to right, so that's what I'm going to do. Because of the wool, I'm not going to worry about trying to make my stitches too fine. This pearl cotton is going to show up just fine, the deep contrast in color. And once we get that main stem going through here, see, I already can barely see that line, then it will make the rest of it easier. And I think the other trick with this stem or outline stitch is to just make your stitches as even as you can. That helps it look nicer in the long run. And I can still see the curve on the bottom side, so I'm angling down towards that. So this may end up looking a little bit uneven, and that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it too much. It's going to look like a garland, like somebody laid a garland of leaves and little flowers across the tree. So let me finish this and I'll be back. I have my wavy line through, and now I need to come back in and we're going to add those other little branches that come in. So I'm going to attempt to make some marks here. It's hard to find good white marking pens, and especially on this wool, it just is not showing. So I think I can eyeball these, to be truthful, to a certain extent, and I think we're going to call it good. Let me show you what I'm thinking. That has this little petaled thing here. What if I just put little stars on those? So I think if I put little stars on it, then it sort of carries through, and we'll have our little starry seam that goes all the way through here. And I think that actually might be pretty cute. And then we could take little rays or something off of it if we feel like we need to. But let me stitch those other stems. I'm going to continue using this off-white, and then we'll be back and decide what we're going to do with the stars. I'm just stitching these little curving branches that come off of here. You know, I have to do something before we go any further. All this extra fabric is driving me crazy. So we're getting the scissors out. I'm going to cut it away because I keep catching it in my stitching. So pardon my mess here. I'm going to leave myself some extra room, but we're going to trim away most of this. I don't need this fabric, and it is just in my way. I think this is going to be a lot easier to handle without all that extra there, and it'll make it easier when I go to put it together as well. We're a little ways away from that yet, though. Let's try that and see how that works. It feels better to me already. I'm just going to leave this bit here. I'm not going to worry too much about that. All right, let's stitch these branches. Oh, yes, so much easier. Simple things. It is all in the simple things sometimes. Still just doing that outline or stem stitch. So this seam didn't end up being one of those sparkly seams that we were talking about, but rather it's more of a garlandy seam. And I think it's going to actually be the kind of seam that sort of helps tie the whole tree together. I think they're going to actually turn out to be really important in the design of this. So that was this one. I think we're done with that for now. I'm trying to decide what color I want to do the little leaves in. Do I want to do them in green? I actually really like this sage. That would really make those little stars stand out. You know, it's light enough to almost be white, but not white. So let's just go ahead and keep using that same needle. Helps if you try and thread the eye instead of the point. Make sure everybody's recording and you can see what I'm doing. So I think that the sage is going to tone down the bright white just a smidgen, and I like that. So we're going to put a couple of leaves here at the crest of each of these arches here along the way, and then we're going to see about putting our little stars in. This thread is not very thick. I want to make sure my lazy daisy is big enough so it's actually going to be noticeable. I'm just going to come through the back and pick up that backing fabric periodically here. And the nice thing with this wool is when I run the threads in between the layers, you can't see it at all on the surface. Now here we're coming up against this other seam, so I'm going to back it up just a smidgen. And that way the seams aren't competing quite as much. Look at this seam with the stars on it. So I'm going to stitch the stars on. Trying to find those holes. There it is. There, so now we have our stars on. I want to come back and add some little sprays off of here. Which thread do I want to use? This would actually be a fun spot to use some of that shiny braid, but I almost don't know if it's going to pick up very well in that. Let's try it. I don't know if I want to do that or this number 12. Let's go for sparkle. Oh my gosh, just go for sparkle. You know, I don't know if this shows up enough. I'm just going to leave it for right now. I think when we get this all done, it's going to be all good. I think that looks good. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking we're going to need one of these bigger stars up in here and probably one out here as well. I think we're going to be doing that all over. They're going to be sitting in these spaces between seams. When I'm putting in straight stitches like this, I do find that I need to exaggerate, especially with this wool, because it sort of eats the thread and makes it less noticeable on the ends. So I make what seems like an extra long stitch, and then it actually looks about right when I get it finished. If I make one that I think is right, like I did here, it looks too short. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to have these 2 seams finished in today's video. I'm going to keep stitching off camera because I really want to get this done by Christmas. And so I think then I will make another video and we'll go back and look and maybe stitch the last seam or 2 in the next video. And Christmas is just a week away when I'm filming this. This is Monday the 18th, so there's not a lot of time left to work on this and get these videos out before the end of the year. So let's try for New Year's. I had planned to have this done maybe slightly before. I'm working a lot in the next couple of weeks, so we'll see how things go. There we go. I'm really happy with how this looks. I think this is just so much fun. Now, if you have any ideas for what I should do on the top of the tree, let me know. I really wish I had one of these about twice that size that I could perch on the top. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much for watching today. I'm so grateful you've been here with me. Again, thanks to all of you for helping me reach 5,000 subscribers. I can't wait to see where this channel is going to go. I hope you're enjoying this Christmas tree project. I'm having so much fun with it, and I'm just delighted with where it's going. I can't wait to finish it. I'm going to keep stitching, but I'm wishing you a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next video.